My girlfriend said she was embarrassed I'm an electrician. I revealed I earned 3x more than her friends. So, I paid my meal only and blocked her forever. I, a 28-year-old male, have been dating my 27-year-old girlfriend, Hazel, for almost 10 months. We've been living together in my place for the past 6 months. I should mention that I own the entire house. No mortgage means no rent. I purchased it 4 years ago, when my electrical contracting business was really taking off. I've been an electrician for 8 years. I started as an apprentice straight out of high school and worked my way up. 5 years ago, I founded my own electrical contracting company. We undertake both residential and commercial work, ranging from basic house rewiring to installing electrical systems and large office buildings. Business has been really good, especially with all of the new building going on in our region. Hazel is an assistant manager at a high-end jewelry store downtown. She's smart and skilled in her profession. When we first started dating, she seemed impressed that I owned my own business and had my own home. She'd tell her pals about how I was an entrepreneur with my own place. Things were going well between us for the first 6 or 7 months, but something changed about 3 months ago. Hazel started making remarks about my job that bothered me. She'd ask when I'd obtain a proper office job. She began discussing how we might relocate to a luxury apartment downtown instead of staying at my house. When I pointed out that paying rent made no financial sense when I owned my home outright, she became irritated and accused me of being cheap. The actual difficulty occurred when she started hanging out with 2 co-workers, Stella and Chloe. Both work as assistant managers at other stores in the same retail area. Stella's boyfriend, Bennett, works in marketing for a technology company, while Chloe's boyfriend, Jude, works in banking. Hazel began spending more time with them, going out for drinks after work and enjoying weekend breakfasts. Hazel's attitude about my employment deteriorated when she began to associate with this group. She stopped emphasizing that I own my own business and simply referred to me as an electrician. When people asked what I did for work, Mom would say I did maintenance work or simply shift the issue entirely. A few weeks ago, she told me that I needed to change careers because being an electrician was not professional enough. I attempted to explain that my business was doing well and that I made a nice living, but she merely said that money wasn't everything and that she wanted a boyfriend she could be happy with. She kept mentioning Bennett and Jude, and how they held significant positions that people respected. Last month, Hazel recommended that we eat supper with Stella, Chloe, and their boyfriends. She mentioned that it would be wonderful for me to meet her work colleagues and for them to meet me. I could see this was a test, but I consented because I wanted to make her happy, and hoped that if I met these individuals, she would stop always comparing myself to them. Last Saturday night, we ate at an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. The location was fancy. Cloth napkins, numerous forks, waiters, and bow ties, the entire deal. Hazel had made reservations for 6 guests. When we arrived, Stella and Chloe were already seated at the table alongside Bennett and Jude. Hazel was clearly concerned about introducing me. Instead of claiming to operate an electrical contracting company, she stated that I ran a maintenance business. When Bennett inquired about the type of maintenance, Hazel promptly suggested that we order beverages first. Bennett and Jude quickly started discussing their jobs. Bennett went on about a marketing strategy he was working on for a client, using a lot of business jargon that sounded sophisticated but didn't mean much. Jude discussed the bank where he works and some loan transactions he was doing. They inquired what my business was about, and before I could respond, Hazel jumped in and stated I conducted electrical repairs and installs. The conversation continued like way throughout supper. Bennett and Jude would discuss their work as if they were saving the world. And Hazel would downplay what I did whenever it came up. When Jude remarked that he was considering pursuing his master's degree in business, Hazel immediately said that was a fantastic idea and looked at me as if I should be taking notes. Stella then began discussing a vacation she and Bennett were arranging to Hawaii. They were planning to stay at a resort that cost $350 a night. Chloe explained that she and Jude were planning a wine tasting trip to California. Hazel became excited and stated that we had never done something romantic like that. I reminded her that we had spoken about coming to Colorado in the fall to watch the leaves change and go hiking. Hazel made a frown and stated that this was not the same as a true vacation. Stella and Chloe agreed that their partners planned such considerate getaways. That's when Hazel truly crossed the line. She looked at me across the table and said, "I never planned anything special for us." She said Bennett and Jude knew how to treat their ladies properly. And then she said something that made me understand our relationship was finished. She claimed I was holding her back and couldn't offer her the life she deserved. Then she glanced around the table and told me I couldn't meet her requirements or provide for her enough. I started laughing, not because it was funny, but because the entire situation seemed absurd. She was sitting in an expensive restaurant that I was paying for, living in a home that I owned, and complaining about how I couldn't provide for her. I asked Bennett how much money he made each year. He appeared uncomfortable and said it was personal. I asked Jude the same question. He estimated $62,000. Bennett finally admitted he made around $57,000. Then I told the entire table that my electrical contracting business made $220,000 last year. The table became utterly quiet. I mentioned that Hazel seemed very concerned about money and providing. So I thought everyone should be aware of the exact numbers. I summoned the waiter, requested the bill for my lunch and drinks, paid $35 for my portion, and departed. I told Hazel she could figure out how to get home and pay the remainder of the cost. When I came home, my phone was full of texts from Hazel. First, she attempted to apologize. Then she became angry. Then she insisted that I send her money to pay her portion of the meal tab. I did not respond to any of the communications. She arrived home at midnight. I'd locked the bedroom door. She knocked and tried to persuade me to talk to her, but I did not respond. She slept on the sofa. The next morning, she announced that she would stay with Stella for a few days, to allow me time to cool down. She packed her stuff and left. That was 3 days ago. She's been contacting me, asking when she can come home, and claiming I'm being dramatic. I don't think I'm overly dramatic. She openly humiliated me in front of people she wanted to impress, all because she was embarrassed by my employment. Then she had the audacity to ask me to pay for her dinner after spending the evening telling everyone I couldn't provide for her. The fact that she knew how much money I made concerns me the most. We've discussed our finances previously. She knew I owned my home and had a thriving business, but she was still embarrassed by the fact that I work with my hands rather than sitting in an office. I'm starting to believe that this relationship has run its course. Hazel is more concerned with how things appear to others than with what is genuinely best for ourselves. I'm not sure if this is something that can be solved. Update 1. I need to update everyone on what has happened since my last post. A lot has changed, and you might not believe what happened next. Hazel stayed at Stella's place for a week following our supper fiasco. She texted me every day, asking when she could come home. Her texts ranged from apologetic to demanding to angry, back to apologetic. I did not respond to the majority of them. Last Tuesday, I had to go to the electrical supply store to get materials for a large commercial project we were starting. Someone called my name as I loaded cable and conduit into my truck. I turned around and spotted Rachel Harris, a 26-year-old friend from high school. We were pals back then but lost touch after graduation. Rachel came there to get supplies for the veterinary clinic where she works as a technician. She mentioned that they required new lighting installed in their operating rooms, and asked if I knew any competent electricians. I informed her I could provide a quote, and we swapped phone numbers. We spent around 30 minutes conversing in the parking lot. Rachel had attended community college for veterinary technology and had been working at the clinic for 3 years. She enjoyed her job and was saving money to ultimately become a professional veterinarian. She inquired about my business, and when I told her about my electrical contracting company, she expressed genuine interest in how I had grown it. The talk flowed easily and naturally. Rachel asked thoughtful questions about the technical aspects of electrical work and was intrigued that I had started my own business so early. It was wonderful to chat to someone who did not make me feel ashamed of my career. I quoted her for the clinic job later that week. The job was only approximately $3,500, but Rachel was competent and easy to work with. While I was installing the new lights, we talked about high school, our careers, and what we had been up to for the past 8 years. Rachel revealed that she had been dating someone for 3 years, but they split up 6 months ago because he wanted her to quit her work and go to another state with him. She stated that she was unwilling to give up her career for someone who did not respect what she did. Rachel texted me on Friday, wondering if I wanted to go have coffee over the weekend. She stated she enjoyed speaking with me and wanted to catch up more. I replied yes, but I also told her I was still in a relationship even if Hazel and I weren't talking. We met for coffee on Saturday morning. Rachel wore pants and a sweatshirt, no makeup, and appeared perfectly relaxed. We talked for 3 hours. She told me more about her employment at the clinic and her intentions to attend veterinary school. I informed her about some of the larger projects my company had completed, and how I hoped to grow into industrial electrical work. When I recounted Hazel and what had transpired at the dinner, Rachel shook her head, saying she couldn't understand why anyone would be embarrassed about skilled labor. She stated that her father had been a mechanic his entire life and provided for the entire family through his labor. She admired those who established careers with their hands and intellect. That afternoon, I texted Hazel, saying we needed to talk. She quickly called me and said she was ready to return home. I asked her to meet me at the house on Sunday evening. Hazel arrived Sunday with all of her belongings from Stella's residence. She was clearly prepared for this chat. She began by apologizing for what happened at dinner and explaining that she had been thinking about everything while staying with Stella. But then she said something that made me realize she still didn't understand the real problem. She said Stella and Chloe had told her she was silly to be concerned about money because I clearly made enough to support us both. She stated her friends suggested she give me another chance because I was financially secure. I asked her if she would have apologized if I had made $50,000 per year instead of $220,000. She didn't immediately respond, which told me everything I needed to know. Then I told her I had been thinking about it, and I understood we wanted different things. I explained that she wanted a man that pleased her friends, and I wanted someone who was proud of me for who I was, not how much money I made. Hazel began crying and stated that she loved me for who I was. She stated that she will attempt to be more supportive of my work. However, when I asked her to explain exactly what my company did, not just that I was an electrician, but what types of jobs we handled and why my work was important, she couldn't. Even after 10 months together, she had never bothered to learn about what I spent the most of my time doing. That's when Hazel noticed Rachel's coffee cup on the kitchen counter. She inquired who it was, so I told her about meeting Rachel and having coffee. Hazel became enraged and accused me of cheating on her when she was staying at Stella's home. I stated that Rachel and I were simply friends and that I had told her I was in a relationship, but that chatting to Rachel had taught me what it was like to have someone truly interested in my work rather than embarrassed by it. Hazel claimed I was being unjust and that she had apologized. She stated I was ruining our relationship over one terrible supper. I informed her it wasn't just one dinner. For months, she treated my career as something embarrassing that she had to hide from her friends. The conversation continued in circles for another hour. Hazel kept claiming she would change, but she couldn't specify how or what she would do differently. Finally, I suggested that we take a break and that she stay with Stella for a little longer. Hazel packed her stuff again and left. She was crying but also angry. Before she left, she told me that I would regret selecting some random female over someone who had been with me for nearly a year. Rachel texted me the next morning, asking how the conversation with Hazel went. I told her that we had chosen to take a break. Rachel expressed regret that things had not worked out, but also stated that I deserved to be acknowledged. Rachel approached me that afternoon and asked if I wanted to assist her choose a new car. Her ancient Honda had finally died, and she needed a reliable way to commute to work. We spent the day visiting various dealerships, where I assisted her in negotiating with salespeople and mechanically inspecting the vehicles. At the conclusion of the day, Rachel purchased a used Toyota and insisted on taking me out to dinner to express her gratitude. We headed to a casual spot near her flat. Nothing spectacular, just delicious meals and conversation. Rachel inquired further about my company and my intentions for expansion. She understood the technical aspects better than most individuals and asked insightful questions regarding electrical codes and commercial vs. residential work. When I told her about a difficult installation I had completed at a hospital, she expressed genuine interest in the problem-solving aspects. It was the type of chat I'd never had with Hazel. Rachel regarded my job as skillful and vital, not something to be embarrassed about. I'm not sure what will happen to Hazel. She is still texting me sometimes, asking when we can talk again. However, spending time with Rachel has showed me how different things can be when someone genuinely respects what I do for a job. Update 2. Things have gotten more convoluted since my last update, and I discovered some new information that has changed my perspective on the entire situation with Hazel. Hazel texted me for almost 3 weeks following our conversation at my residence. Her messages ranged from begging to get back together to becoming enraged that I wasn't replying. Finally, I told her we needed to have one more conversation to officially end things. We met at a coffee cafe near her workplace. Hazel seemed exhausted and anxious. She began by explaining that she had been thinking a lot and had recognized she had treated me poorly. She stated that she wanted to work things out and was open to making changes. I asked her what specific changes she was referring to. Hazel stated that she would stop caring what Stella and Chloe thought and would become more supportive of my business. But when I asked her what my company did beyond simple electrical work, she couldn't explain it effectively. Then Hazel said something that astonished me. She told me Stella and Chloe had been pressuring her to break up with me for months. She claimed they often told her she could do better and that dating a tradesman was beneath someone with her education and profession. I questioned why she had listened to them rather than making her own decisions regarding our relationship. Hazel stated that she valued their opinions because they had been her friends longer than we had been together. That's when I realized Hazel had never actually formed her own opinions about me or my work. She had simply been swayed by what her pals were telling her. I told Hazel that we were done and she should stop texting me. She began to cry and thought I was giving up too easily. She claimed that partnerships required work and that I was unwilling to fight for us. I explained that I would not give up. I was recognizing that we were not compatible. I stated that I needed to be with someone who valued my work from the start, rather than someone who needed to be convinced that it was worthwhile. Hazel left the coffee shop upset, but I assumed that was the end of it. I was mistaken. The following week, I received a call from my business partner, David, 31M. David and I founded an electrical contracting company together 4 years ago. He manages the majority of the business, while I focus on technical work and client interactions. David informed me that someone had called our business phone and left a message claiming that we were untrustworthy contractors who overcharged consumers. The caller did not provide a name, but the voice sounded like a young woman. 3 days later, David received another call. This time, the person claimed that we had done poor work at their home and threatened to denounce us to the state licensing board. Again, no name was provided, but David claimed the caller sounded like the same woman. I had suspicions about who was making these calls, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Then I found out for certain. Rachel and I had been spending more time together in the previous few weeks. We hadn't officially started dating yet, but we had gone out to dinner numerous times, and I had helped her carry some furniture into her new apartment. I grew to like her the more we spent time together. Rachel and I were at Home Depot last Saturday, buying supplies for a project at her apartment, when Stella approached us. I knew her from the dinner fiasco, despite the fact that we had barely spoken that evening. Stella walked up to us and began ranting at me in the middle of the store. She called me a bad person for breaking up with Hazel and initiating a new relationship right away. She claimed Hazel had been crying for weeks and that I had ruined her life. Rachel was perplexed, so I introduced her to Stella and explained who she was. Stella immediately turned on Rachel, calling her sad for dating someone's ex-boyfriend so soon. Rachel remained calm and told Stella that she had no idea what was going on, but she needed to quit ranting in public. Stella stated Rachel was welcome to me because I was a blue-collar worker who would never amount to much. That's when I asked Stella if she had been calling my company and making false complaints. Stella's face turned scarlet, and she stated she had no idea what I was talking about, but her reaction revealed everything I needed to know. I informed Stella that making false reports on a licensed business was prohibited, and that if the calls continued, I would notify the police. Stella told me I couldn't prove anything and went away. Rachel asked me to describe what had just transpired. I told her about the weird phone calls and how I suspected Hazel or her friends were behind them. Rachel was astounded that someone would attempt to harm my business over a personal relationship. She warned it went beyond petty vengeance and may harm my livelihood. The next day, I called Hazel to inform her about my incident with Stella. I stated if she or her buddies approached my company again, I would file a police report and possibly a lawsuit. Hazel denied knowing anything about phone calls, but she seemed nervous. She said that Stella was furious because of how I treated her friend, and that I had no control over what other people did. I told Hazel she needed to let Stella understand there would be serious consequences if the harassment continued. Hazel said she'd talk to her, but that I was overreacting about a few phone calls. I stated that my business reputation was everything, and that false complaints could result in thousands of dollars in lost contracts. Hazel said she hadn't considered it that way. The phone call ended after that chat, confirming my suspicions about who was behind them. However, the entire event made me realize how toxic Hazel's friend group actually was. These were hardly the only folks who despised blue-collar jobs. They were willing to aggressively ruin someone's business due to a personal disagreement. Rachel and I discussed everything that had transpired. She said she couldn't believe people would act that way, but it proved I'd made the right decision by terminating things with Hazel.